And a lot of people are asking, why didn't we just do this floor speech and make this offer a month ago? Tim, I don't know. I applaud you for carrying that floor speech because it might end up being a seminal moment here. And maybe this is, in fact, the offer that unlocks a shutdown. But I've got to say, everyone seems kind of upset in Washington today. The president's appearing angry about affordability. John Thune, the Republican leader in the Senate, was upset about the way this was handled by Chuck Schumer. But we could be in a situation where any off-ramp looks attractive at this point, knowing that they're starting to turn the screws at the FAA. 800 flights canceled today. And the president, the administration, is appealing this ruling to fulfill SNAP benefits. So the government needs to reopen. That is obvious. And to your point, it's a clean CR, as they're calling it, the continuing resolution. I don't have a date, by the way, and I keep looking for that. I've got my eyes on the floor. I don't know exactly how long the CR would go, but it would be a 1-year extension for SNAP benefits. And we'll find out if, in fact, that's palatable to anybody on the other side.
So, Joe, from the politics perspective of this, is this Democrats giving in a little bit? Democrats saying, OK, we are ready to give up a little bit.
Well, look, you're right to point that out because they were originally demanding a permanent extension. And it's difficult sometimes to know where this is coming from because not every lawmaker is on the same page. We did have some Democrats say that even the guarantee of a vote would be enough. Haley Stevens told that yesterday. Now we're looking at a 1-year extension. At some point, there's going to need to be compromise unless the government stays closed the rest of our lives. So, look, this might be what begins to turn the gears to getting this done.
All right. So, I don't know. What are you hearing that's going on in the White House? I mean, like, have you seen? It's interesting. We were talking in the newsroom how it was feeling like that this was on the Republicans at this point, like the airline shutting down. I don't know. What's been the tone in Washington about who's to blame here? And maybe, I don't know. It just has felt all of a sudden like, it's shifted away. And a lot of people may be thinking about, okay, where's the White House on this? Where's the Republicans on this? They're the party in charge.
Well, that's right. And it's interesting that you ask it that way because it might be two different answers to that question. When it comes to the White House, President Trump woke up on Wednesday morning after those elections and said the shutdown and the fact that he wasn't on the ballot were to blame. And he gathered Senate Republicans in the White House and he said that we're getting the blame for this. People have decided that it's Republicans who control the House, the Senate, and the White House. So finish this, get it done, get legislation passed. The Republican Party, beyond the president, many cases, at least when it comes to lawmakers, still feel like they have the moral high ground and that they are right and that Democrats have voted 15 times or whatever it is at this point to shut down the government. So you get two different answers, whether you're on Capitol Hill or whether you're at the White House. And that's why a lot of people think it's the president who will need to be the one to stand up and get this done. Some Republicans have been concerned that he'd start dealing directly with Chuck Schumer to get this done because it's not good politics for the White House following what took place on Tuesday night. They see that corrosion that a lot of voters talked about around the country.
Yeah, well, it's not just that, Joe, but it also, I think, it feels like the issues at airports ahead of the Thanksgiving holiday travel are really starting to make a difference. I mean, we heard from Sean Duffy just in your program earlier today, the Secretary of Transportation, who said, okay, 10% right now, but things could get bad as 20% of scheduled flights being cut. Is that what ends the shutdown like it has in the past, disruption at airports?
Well, you're asking the right question. I've been asking that, too. That's why I reach for airports and SNAP, because they have not been fully funded either. So you've got a world in which some people are actually starting to go hungry or they're waiting in lines at food banks. And you've got people sleeping on floors in airports. It took me 6 hours to get up to New York from D.C. the other day.
Wow.
And that's just an example. I mean, I'm not furloughed and I'm getting paid, but a lot of people are not getting paid right now. So, and we have to remember what the air traffic controllers are going through. Look, we're in record territory, and I just cannot imagine that this is allowed to continue through Thanksgiving. So we're going to hear different off-ramps. This is one of them. Guys, maybe we get another. Maybe there's a response from John Thune beyond vote for what we have here and we'll promise you a vote. Because another week of this, to your point, Tim, we could be at 20% capacity.
Yeah, I got to think, too, when you're at the airlines and people are, sitting there waiting online or just frustrated because their flight's canceled, you look up on the screen, it's Kristi Noem there, Homeland Security, right, talking about TSA and the importance. I mean, that's what you see. And so you start to think about, okay, who's responsible? Healthcare, why is this such a tricky issue for the Republicans?
Well, it seems to be for everybody at the moment. And the fact that we're still gnawing over Obamacare, I mean, it's been almost 20 years of this, which is pretty remarkable here. Yes, but, you know, when you listen to the likes of Marjorie Taylor Greene and even Josh Hawley, I'll take one Republican from each side, realizing they don't speak for their conferences, but they're seeing premiums go up in their states, in some cases more than blue states, which is why there's going to be a breaking point. That's the other thing, and I'm glad you mentioned it. You take these three, right? You've got premiums in some case quadrupling, you've got SNAP benefits expiring, and you've got airports that are closing. That is not sustainable. And but you know, look at what's happening at Teterboro Airport. You start hitting the airports where the private jets fly out of, and I bet you accelerate the end of this pretty quickly.
That's a good point. George Ferguson was on with us.
Yeah, he was just at a conference with private jets, corporate jets, and you know what? They're doing okay. And they're selling, right?
Yeah.
It's a hot market.
Hey Joe, we heard from Chuck Schumer earlier today, Senate minority leader, and the way that he ended his speech was the ball is in Republicans' court. Is it?
Well, for the minute it is. Now, John Thune's going to come back with something probably in the next little bit here, and maybe he's talking to him right now, where this is going to be a volley probably for a bit. They need to come up with a date. How long is this going to get? Nobody wants a full year CR again, it sounds like. So we need a date. It might be into January is what we're hearing. And then everybody can get together and figure out how this is going to work, because it's not only a matter of keeping the government open. They've got to get their heads around the Obamacare stuff. And I don't think a 1-year extension will be the end of it.
Is it really in the court of the president? And I was listening Wednesday, too, after the election. I think there was some breakfast. He sounded defeated. And I haven't heard the president sound that way in a long time. Does he understand that this is kind of all hurting him specifically?
Well, I think that was the moment, and that's what I was referring to when he suggested that it was the results on Tuesday night that proved that Republicans were getting the blame for this. He doesn't think that's justified, by the way, but it's time to react to it. And, you know, you heard his frustration continue today in that cabinet room with Viktor Orban. He is very frustrated right now. He feels like he's getting the blame for inflation and for the government being closed. So I think you guys put your finger on it. At some point, the president's going to pick up the phone, and that is likely what it's going to take for this to end. Whether that takes place this weekend, we'll find out. But they are apparently going to be staying in town, so this could be important.